I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Chelsea Lipford-Wolf.
Thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner here on YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a like and a comment.
And be sure to share with a friend, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you get notified of new videos.
Thanks and enjoy the show. This week on Today's Homeowner, we're getting your lawn and gardens ready for cooler weather with a special fall around the yard episode. There's lots to learn and lots to do, so stick around.
All right, job well done.
Spring is the time of the year where most people start thinking about getting out in their yard and really making it look great. But there's a number of things that you can do during the fall of the year that will ensure that your yard looks great when the weather starts warming up. So this is one of our special Around the Yard episodes where we bring in Julie Day Jones, our lawn and garden editor from todayshomeowner.com, to share with you a few of these tips. And we're introducing her to another garden enthusiast, my friend and neighbor, Story Walters.
I always say my yard's on steroids because it's like everything
takes off.
way too much.
Right.
Back here I've got some hostas.
Those are very easy to divide. Yeah, these would be some good ones for us to experiment with. You know, some plants you can tell when they need to be divided because they'll get really almost like a donut shape, like the middle will empty out.
Like daylilies.
Sure. That one's not quite there yet, but you can see that it's more spread out than the others.
It looks a little sickly.
Yeah, so I think if we divide that one up, and it'll probably be really good and healthy by spring.
Yeah, and see, and then this right here, these are ginger lilies. Pull them
Oh,
up,
wow, you
and
just
they've kinda
pulled
got
one
this
up. Yeah.
rhizome thing, and even if you got another little section of that and planted it in the ground, next year it would make one of these. So they'll start little, but they get bigger. And when I used to, like when they would all start to die back in the winter, I always was like cutting, and a friend of mine down the street, Monica, she goes, Story, just lay them all down, cover it with pine straw, and they'll all come back fine anyway. And I was
Instant compost.
so I was like, that's so much easier than hauling it all away.
Uh-huh.
Well, I have plants in my yard. I have Gerber daisies that my mother gave me when my son was born, and she passed away a long time ago, but he is 27 now.
And you were telling me earlier that your daughter has a new house that needs help in the yard.
They just purchased a house not far, and so if I can help her with starting babies here or transplanting or digging up stuff, you know, and dividing it, she can start her own little thing there and save them some money. I'm hoping I can do that with all my children.
So after getting to know the yard and each other, they get to work.
Hostas are fun to divide because they kind of show you where to do it. You know, you can see here that this will just pull off.
You're saying, and then if you wanted to, this could be like 6 more. If you're a really patient person.
If you want all the little, all the little babies. And you know, sometimes when it's really tight, I like to get just an old knife, and you can even cut it if it's so matted that you can't really tell where it would normally divide. Okay. That will help you.
That's probably a good idea.
You know, just kind of slice through and take one of them off, because sometimes you just can't do it without breaking or cutting.
And you almost feel like you're hurting the plant, but because you like saw through big major root things, but you know what? It's kind of like when you take a plant out of a pot. If you scar up the roots in the pot, you know, like if it's root bound, it makes the plant kind of spread into the ground easier.
Sure. And
how do you go in?
Kind of in between two of the clumps, you get 2 crowns.
Okay.
You want to make sure.
I didn't do that real well, but.
Oh yeah, it's fine. You just want to make sure that every plant has a crown, which is this little part here where it all comes out of the ground.
Okay.
So that you're planting crowns. If you end up getting just a little leaf, it's not gonna grow.
Okay.
I like to put a little bone meal or phosphorus in the hole. This you can kind of see on the bag here. The middle number is phosphorus, which it tends to help with roots and root growth.
Instead of promoting top growth right now.
Right, and this is an organic bone meal, so putting a handful of this in the hole certainly can't hurt. But after you divide something, sometimes it needs a little TLC to help those roots get going.
Okay, well thank you.
All right, job well done.
Julie, I'll have to admit, that's a pretty cool trick, dividing one plant into 5.
It's true. It's a good way to save money, fill up your yard, even have a few to give to friends.
Yeah, that's true. Well, now, while you guys were over there doing that, I thought that I would trim a few of Story's limbs here. You see all kinds of few dead ones here and there. I don't know why I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
It's okay to trim up your hedges, just neaten things up a little bit. But you know, when you trim things back a lot, it causes them to sprout.
I see.
And you got another month or two of warm weather. If you get things to sprout and then a cold front moves in, it could really hurt that plant.
Absolutely.
So I'd hold off on that until winter, maybe early spring, and then do your heavy pruning.
So you have me a little paranoid now. So there's some place in between there in terms of how much that you can trim. Am I safe with this one?
You are. That's a good dead one. I'd cut that one off.
You might not have thought you'd ever get around to using the high school geometry, but if you've ever had to lay out lines at a perfectly square 90-degree corner, here's a chance to use it. If it's a large project like this where we're extending the patio, a framing square would be too small, it wouldn't be accurate enough. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, and it's based on a 3-4-5 ratio. So along one line, I measured and marked 3 feet, and along the intersecting line, I did the same thing only at 4 feet. And now, to put the theorem into practice, you simply measure across the two lines and you move the stake in or out until the 5-foot mark lines up exactly with the mark that you made on the line. Then you can drive in the stake, and it won't be perfectly in line the first time, but you can move the stake in or out, side to side, as you need to. And this works. Here I did it at 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, but you can use any of those ratios, so it could be 6, 8, or 10. The larger the project, the larger the numbers, the more accurate it'll be.
This week we're looking at a number of things that you can do out in your yard during the fall of the year that'll make your yard look great come springtime. But one of the things you probably wouldn't think about is maybe doing a little planting. Julie, why is this a great time to do some planting?
Fall's an excellent time to plant stuff, especially if you have a little bit more warm weather left. Everything will settle in, roots will grow, everything will go dormant for the winter, and by spring it'll just be ready to grow.
Well, what's the, I don't quite understand. It's kind of a little
Isn't this
mound
pretty?
in the bottom of it here. I don't get it. What's...
I know. Well, it's sort of just like an insurance policy. I know a lot of people, especially people with green thumbs, can dig a hole, stick it in the ground, and it's happy.
Yeah, I know it.
I like to spend just a little extra time because when you do that, it saves you a little bit of work later.
I get you.
For instance, this azalea likes to be about 1 inch above the soil line when you plant it. So to keep it from sinking, we just dug down to right here, left that nice and compacted so the plant can sit on that little mound. But then we loosened up the dirt around it deeper so the roots have a place to go instead of digging out the middle.
Is there a general rule of thumb on how much larger that hole should be than the actual plant?
I say 3 times as wide and at least as deep.
Okay.
And if you take the time to make this little mound, then later you don't have to worry about when you water it, the thing sinking and being too low.
Okay.
It keeps it up at the right height.
Well, here, I can help you finish it up. What's next?
That sounds good. Well, let's put this plant in the ground.
Okay, all right.
We've got the nice hole ready for it. We're just gonna gently pull it out of the pot. It's got good roots. Doesn't look like it's root bound.
And I guess when you position something, you need to be conscious of if it's full in one direction or the other in terms of how it'll be viewed.
You do. You want it to look good when you plant it.
See, I'm catching on to this.
So let's turn this a little bit. This side's nice and full. We'll have it facing out.
And that's deep enough, huh?
Yeah, plenty deep. I've got some soil conditioner here that's gonna just improve the soil some around
So you
it.
what, just kind of sprinkle that along with it?
Yeah, not too much. You know, we want this plant to grow out into the roots, out into the yard. So we don't need to put too much right here around it, but just a little bit since it's fall, winter's coming.
Okay.
And really with this stuff, just about a shovel full or 2 per plant is all you need.
Oh, really? Oh, I
Just
get you.
kind of helps keep it from getting too compacted.
I think even I can finish this simple little task because I know you have something that you're going to help Story with.
Okay. So let's plant some of these bulbs. Do you have a spot picked out?
I think it'd be really nice to have some color right over here,
I
especially
like
in the
that.
early spring.
Well, you know, the most important thing with bulbs is you want to get them at the right depth and you want to space them correctly. And of course, if they take full sun, you've got to pick the right spot to begin with. But tulips, let's see, the package says 5 inches, or some varieties of tulips I think like to be deeper. We actually have an article on the website that has a good chart of what depth to plant what bulbs. The fun thing about spring bulbs is you can come out here in the fall and you can buy them by the bag. They're really economical. You can pack them into spaces and then you cover them up and just wait for spring.
And then it's like a surprise.
Then it's like a surprise. Yeah. This is a little mini auger that attaches to a drill. Ooh. Let's check the depth. Yeah, about 5 to 6 inches deep. That's pretty good. Okay. Yeah, and then just drop one down in there.
There you go.
There's one. Right here in the fall, you can plant some of these in a pot and stick it in your fridge. Pull it out.
Put the whole pot in your refrigerator?
Put the whole pot in the fridge and pull it out like in November. And put it in a window.
Bloom in your house?
Yeah, right around the holidays.
Oh,
so if you're thinking ahead to Christmas gifts, you know, pot some of these up and get them in your fridge.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I like to try and do pots of herbs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Random gardening.
Bulbs are really best naturalized. If you put them like in a straight line or in too much of a shape, they look a little forced. They're really better when you give them a chance to spread out and take their own irregular shapes. But you know, where I live in North Carolina, a lot of bulbs, these bulbs do great, but some of the other ones will freeze in the winter. You have to dig them up and store them someplace warm.
You have to dig up caladiums, right?
Right. We either have to dig them up or we have to replant them fresh every year because they don't handle the cold snow very well. That looks pretty good. So it doesn't look like we did anything, but in the spring you're going to have a really nice surprise out here.
I'll have to give you a call.
Oh, I want to see pictures.
Okay. Okay.
Looks good.
Now, you know, I love being outdoors, working on the lawn or in my garden, but there is a tool that frustrates me every time, and that's pruning my trees, because I've got my set of loppers, I'm going around, and I try to get a really thick branch so that I can cut it off, and I actually get my loppers caught in the branch. Then I gotta go and get something like a pruning saw, so I'm dragging around a couple of tools just to do one little project. Until now, take a look at this. These are a set of loppers by Fiskars. Now, this is an anvil cut. And look how this works. With this hand stationary, I'm gonna move the handle this way and see that ratchet action I get? And I can cut that branch in no time, up to 2 inches thick. So think about it. Now it's gonna save time, it's gonna save energy, and I can cut larger branches. You know what? I think pruning may become my favorite outdoor activity.
They just kind of fall apart.
This week, we're getting the yard ready for fall. Julie Day Jones and my neighbor Story Walters have been prepping the gardens.
Back here I've got some hostas.
Those are very easy to divide.
And now they moved on to the lawn. Okay, so what are you guys attacking now? Are we fertilizing a little bit?
Well, we're actually doing a little bit of lawn fungus control.
Oh, well, how do you know it's fungus?
It's definitely thinner than the rest of the grass. It gets a yellow tinge to it. You can kind of pull on it and it'll come out easily, and it just invites weeds. So I got this from a guy at the nursery, and he said, let's put that on now. Definitely don't fertilize it because it'll feed fungus too. So hoping we can get a handle on it so it'll have a nice fall grass.
Now, what about fertilizers? You talked about fertilizing. When do you fertilize? Everybody says, you know, you got to do it in the spring, got to do it in the fall. When do you really fertilize to get the best kind of lawn?
Well, I think a lot of times you get those conflicting views because people are growing different kinds of grass.
Right, okay.
You know, I live in North Carolina, and from there and farther north states, we have cool season grasses like fescue particularly, that fall is prime time to feed it. They start growing in the fall. That's when you plant it, that's when you fertilize it, that's when everybody gets out and does their yard work. But farther down south where it's warmer, you have warm season grasses, like this is St. Augustine. Sometimes it'll even go dormant here over the winter. So you don't want to feed it too much in the fall because you don't want to feed it and then freeze it when if you have snow or cold weather. So a lot of times you'll do that in spring.
Yeah, and what about aeration? You know, we see people around here all the time. They'll rent an aerator and then they'll just tear their yard up.
And their sprinkler systems.
Yeah, exactly. so I mean, when should you aerate?
You can do that about any time. Fall's a great time. Spring is also a good time. I like to do it in the fall because you can put down things like your lime, your compost. If you're trying to amend your soil to get the nutrients in balance, put them down in the fall, let them sit and decompose over the winter, and then come spring, it's ready to grow.
I got you. Well, you guys have been doing so much work. The least I can do is open up the bag, pour it in the spreader, you know. As the weather cools down, your mowing chores will slow down. So this is a good time to think about getting your mower ready for a long winter nap.
When it comes to lawnmower maintenance, there are two sides of this coin. Heads, take care of that lawnmower at the end of the season. Tails, take care of the lawnmower at the very beginning of the season. Now, both camps have valid arguments, but I'm going to commit. I'm going to tell you what I think. End of the season. The reason why is that you're also winterizing your mower, protecting it, of course, through those harsh winter months. And let's face it, at the beginning of the season, I don't want to take all the time to do maintenance on it. I want to put gasoline and go. So easy to do. Let's start with gasoline since we brought that up. You want to make sure the tank is empty. Now, the best way to do this, particularly with a mower like this, is just to make sure you're doing this at the end of your last cut. Run it out of gas. I don't like the fact that some people say take the cap off, tip it over, drain it out. You can spill it all over the place. That's not good. Just run it out until it's out of gas. Let it cool down, and then the very first thing, come over here and pull the plug or the wire off the spark plug. This is just a safety precaution. First of all, I like to clean it off. That means cleaning off the front deck, get all the grass and dirt off of it. But don't forget about the underside. You want to tilt that up, get a garden hose, spray all the underneath. You want any built-up grass off of there. Once you've got that done, go ahead and pull the blade off of there. You want to take this to a professional or sharpen it yourself. Personally, I like using a bench grinder. It's not that it's better, it's just that I'm more comfortable with it. Sharpen the blade, put it back on. You want to drain the oil out. Go ahead and drain the oil. Don't drain it in the ground. Drain it into a container and have it disposed of properly. Once that's done, you want to clean or replace your air filter. Since you've got the wire off of your spark plug, go ahead and pull the spark plug out and change it as well. Then you want to fill it back up with fresh oil. Put the cap on everything. Keep the plug and wire off. You're ready to store it.
In addition to winterizing your power tools, you also need to pay a little attention to your hand tools, and rust, that's really the enemy, isn't it?
Especially if you're like me and tend to leave them out in the rain.
Yeah, like this one right here. Somebody
one
left
right
this
there.
one out in the rain.
That
and-
one could use a little TLC, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first thing, attacking that rust, if you use a wire brush, you can get a lot of that rust off of there, and that's the first step when you have a... Thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner. And don't forget to like, comment, and hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified of new videos.
And be sure to click around and watch some more videos while you're here.